It was supposed to be the happiest night of her life. Lights twinkled over the courtyard of the college's annual winter ball, reflecting in the glass of champagne she cradled carefully between trembling fingers. Aaliyah had spent weeks planning everything: her dress, his surprise gift, and the speech she had written in her journal, rehearsed over and over again in the mirror. She was finally going to tell Ahad how much he meant to her. 2 years of love, 2 years of dreams, laughter, promises. She was sure he felt the same. But she hadn't seen him all evening. He wasn't replying to her texts, and his phone went straight to voicemail. Her best friend, Zoya, had also disappeared. Aaliyah had checked the dance floor, the food stalls, even the photography booth where Zoya always dragged her for silly selfies. But no sign. Worry began to curdle into something else, something darker. A feeling she tried to ignore, but it clawed its way up her throat as she walked past the old architecture building. Then she heard it, a low laugh, familiar, and a voice she knew better than her own. Zoya. Aaliyah's heels clicked against the cold stone floor as she followed the voices down the hallway. Her heart was pounding in her ears. A part of her wanted to turn back, wanted to believe that whatever her gut was screaming was just a misunderstanding. But what she saw next would burn in her memory forever. Ahad's jacket, Zoya's dress, her best friend sitting on her boyfriend's lap in a tucked-away classroom, his lips pressed against her neck, fingers tracing her waist. Their whispers were not innocent. Their laughter not friendly. Aaliyah didn't scream. She didn't even cry. She stood there, frozen. Like her body hadn't yet caught up with the explosion happening in her chest. And when Zoya finally turned and saw her, eyes widening, mouth parting in shock, Aaliyah slowly backed away, the glass still in her hand, her knuckles white. Neither of them chased after her. People always talk about heartbreak like it's a crack. Something jagged but visible. But Aaliyah felt like she was drowning in something thick and invisible. A betrayal that hollowed her out from the inside, slowly and silently. The next day, Zoya texted her like nothing had happened. "Hey babe, can we talk? I made a mistake." Aaliyah stared at the message, her phone still shaking in her hand. The audacity, the cruelty, the lies. A week passed. Then 2. Zoya and Ahad made it official on Instagram. #FoundMyPerson. She had posted a picture of them laughing together under the same string lights from the ball. That's when something inside Aaliyah snapped. The heartbreak didn't go away, but it transformed into something fierce, cold, calculated. She would not cry quietly anymore. She would burn them where it hurt the most. Aaliyah wasn't just another pretty girl in college. She was smart, painfully smart, and she had watched Zoya and Ahad closely for years. She knew their secrets. She had been their confidant, their alibi, their diary. Now she would become their reckoning. The first step was silence. She disappeared from their world, no posts, no stories, no statuses. She unfollowed quietly, ghosted every mutual friend. Zoya even tried messaging again. "You know he never loved you like that, right?" The venom in that message made Aaliyah's revenge feel not just justified, but necessary. By the end of the semester, Zoya had submitted her application for the prestigious New York design internship, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Aaliyah had helped her build the portfolio, written the recommendation letter draft that Zoya had just tweaked and submitted under her own name. She knew every piece of her work, every borrowed sketch and fake quote. It only took one anonymous email to the committee with side-by-side comparisons and timestamps. Zoya's offer was revoked in a week. Zoya had a breakdown in the girls' washroom. Aaliyah listened from the stall, phone recording every whispered sob. But she wasn't done. Ahad had a secret, one he never thought would surface. He had cheated on his college entrance exams, paid someone to take one of them for him, using a fake ID. Aaliyah had once helped him forge the documents to cover up the mistake when he thought he was being investigated. He forgot she still had the files. One anonymous tip to the university ethics board later, Ahad was suspended pending investigation. His scholarship was frozen. The perfect couple was falling apart from the inside. And yet, Aaliyah still hadn't made a move in public. The final strike came at the year-end cultural gala, where Zoya was supposed to walk the ramp for the student fashion showcase, a collection themed around loyalty and love. How poetic. Aaliyah waited until the day of the event. She showed up backstage uninvited, but she wasn't stopped. She still had that charming, quiet smile, the one that made people underestimate her. Zoya froze when she saw her. Aaliyah? You look nervous, Aaliyah said softly, tucking a loose strand of hair behind Zoya's ear. Stage fright? Zoya's lips trembled. Please, I didn't mean to hurt you. I was scared you'd hate me. I don't hate you, Aaliyah whispered. Hate would be too easy. Then she walked away. 10 minutes later, a screen behind the runway lit up. It was supposed to play a montage of Zoya's designs. Instead, it played something else. A video compilation of texts, screenshots, audio, Zoya's cruel messages about Aaliyah. Ahad's voice in a recording, she's smart, but honestly boring. Zoya's the real fun. Laughter, secrets, betrayals. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Zoya stood frozen on the ramp, mascara running down her cheeks. Aaliyah watched from the wings, arms crossed, expression blank. They had ripped her heart out in the dark. She destroyed them in the light. The auditorium fell into stunned silence. Aaliyah didn't blink as the video played. Every gasp, every whisper, every scandalized murmur from the audience felt like justice pressing down on Zoya's shoulders. The once envied fashion queen now stood humiliated under the spotlight she used to crave. Zoya stumbled off the ramp, heels clicking in frantic desperation. Tears smeared her makeup. She yanked off the mic clip to her dress and fled backstage. Aaliyah didn't follow. She didn't need to. Her silence screamed louder than any confrontation. The fallout was swift. Zoya's reputation shattered like glass on concrete. Overnight, she became a cautionary tale. Professors withdrew their recommendations. Her design mentor cut her off. The university's student committee blacklisted her name from further events. Ahad, meanwhile, spiraled in his own storm. His suspension turned into a year-long academic penalty after the forged documents were traced back to his application. His father, a retired military officer, had dragged him home in disgrace. The golden couple of campus was no more. But Aaliyah? She didn't celebrate. Revenge wasn't sweet. It wasn't glamorous. It was exhausting. The world didn't suddenly feel lighter. She didn't wake up laughing. Instead, she stared at the ceiling of her tiny apartment, wondering why the emptiness still clung to her ribs. Until she realized, she wasn't empty. She was free. 3 weeks later, she sat under the old willow tree on the far edge of campus, the place where Zoya and she used to share coffees and dreams. Only now, Aaliyah sat alone, a notebook in her lap, pen in hand. She had stopped writing the moment they broke her. But today, she began again. Not about love. Not about pain. But about power. About rediscovering her voice, her own story. Zoya tried to reach her again. You've ruined my life. Was that your plan? Aaliyah read the message but didn't respond. That wasn't her plan. Her plan was to make sure Zoya never again mistook kindness for weakness. That she'd think twice before stabbing someone who once considered her family. Ahad, too, tried calling. Left a voicemail. I know I messed up. But I did love you at some point. That line made Aaliyah laugh. A quiet, bitter sound. At some point, didn't undo the damage. Summer came, and with it, graduation. Aaliyah walked the stage in a white dress, her honors sash glinting under the lights. Her parents cheered from the crowd, proud and unaware of the storm their daughter had weathered alone. Zoya wasn't there. Ahad's seat was empty. Justice, Aaliyah realized, wasn't always loud. Sometimes it looked like walking across a stage with your head high, while your enemies watched from the sidelines, silent, exposed, broken. 6 months later, Aaliyah launched her own design brand, Silent Scream Studio. It wasn't just a fashion label. It was a voice for the voiceless. Each collection told a story, of survival, betrayal, rebirth. Her designs weren't just clothes. They were confessions. Her first collection went viral. Fashion blogs called it hauntingly beautiful, unapologetically raw, and crafted from scars. Zoya tried copying the aesthetic on a backup Instagram account. Aaliyah's legal team shut it down in 48 hours. The pain didn't disappear overnight. There were still days she stared too long at old photos. Days when a song or smell dragged her back to those fragile nights in college. But now, she didn't flinch. She let herself feel it, and then let it pass. Because Aaliyah had learned the most powerful thing in the world. You don't get to choose who breaks your heart. But you do get to choose what you become after it's shattered. And she chose fire. 2 years later. The college campus had changed. The faces were newer, the graffiti repainted, the corners less familiar, but the energy remained. Aaliyah returned not as a student, but as the keynote speaker at the annual Women in Design Summit. Her name now carried weight. Silent Scream Studio had gained international acclaim. Vogue called her the designer of pain turned power. Survivors sent her messages daily, thanking her for making them feel seen. As she walked across campus, heels tapping against polished tiles, memories floated around her like whispers. The old willow tree, the courtyard from the winter ball, that hallway outside the classroom where her world had first crumbled. She paused, closed her eyes, and exhaled. After her speech, students lined up for photos and autographs. Cameras flashed, voices buzzed with admiration. Then a quiet one broke through the noise. Aaliyah? She turned slowly. Zoya. Her hair was shorter now, her eyes tired, her smile unsure. She stood behind the crowd, clutching a notebook to her chest like a lifeline. I didn't think you'd come back here, Zoya said. I wasn't planning to, Aaliyah replied, her voice even. But some ghosts deserve a second look. Zoya took a step forward. I've changed. People always say that, Aaliyah said quietly. After they lose. I lost everything. No, Aaliyah corrected her. You destroyed everything. There's a difference. Zoya's eyes welled up. I think about it every day. What I did, what I said. I was jealous, insecure, stupid. You were cruel, Aaliyah cut in. And you were calculated. Don't blame it on emotions. Silence stretched between them like a razor-thin wire. I never apologized, Zoya whispered. Aaliyah looked her dead in the eyes. That's because you didn't mean it. Zoya bit her lip. I wish I could undo it. Aaliyah nodded slowly. I'm sure you do, but I don't want your apology. Zoya blinked, confused. Aaliyah smiled, not kindly, not cruelly, but with a calmness that only came after surviving hell. Because you don't deserve peace, Zoya. Not from me. You'll carry this forever, and that's your justice. Zoya's mouth parted slightly, like she wanted to argue. But she didn't. She just stood there, in the shadow of the woman she once betrayed, faced with the truth that she could never hurt her again. As Aaliyah walked away, her assistant jogged to catch up. You okay? She asked. I'm more than okay, Aaliyah said. I'm whole. That night, she opened her laptop and typed something she hadn't written in years. They didn't break me. They sharpened me. And now I cut through everything I once cried over. She saved it under a new collection title, Reborn in the Fire.